Hello, I'm Andrew Bazantz, the artistic director of Eugene Opera. This episode of Songs for Quarantine features a work that is both spare and melodic at the same time, Buford's song, The Lunatic. The poem is by renowned Serbian-American poet Charles Simic. The text of The Lunatic was first published in the New Yorker magazine in 2012 and was later included in a collection of Simic's poetry in 2015. Buford's music clearly has influences from composers of our time, but one also hears structural elements that reach back into much older eras. As minimal as the accompaniment is, the voice is given a richly melodic line, providing beautiful contrast to Simic's spare poetry. Buford is a violinist and composer from Brooklyn, New York. He started playing the violin at the age of 10 and was self-taught for 3 years until taking lessons at the Mozart Academy in New York City. He is currently pursuing his bachelor's degree in violin performance at the Boston Conservatory at Berkeley. As a composer, he has written music for various chamber and solo settings. Among his many compositions, he wrote an orchestral work, If We Must Die, inspired by Claude McKay, which was premiered by the New York Philharmonic for the Very Young Composers Concert. He recently participated in the Westbin's Performer Composer Digital Residency, the Black Composers Miniature Challenge hosted by Castle of Our Skins, and the Curtis Summerfest for Composition. I recently spoke with Che about his work and writing The Lunatic. So Che, it is a pleasure to speak with you, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about The Lunatic. What led to this piece?
So, The Lunatic was inspired by Charles Simic's poetry, The Lunatic, and I think I was just browsing in the library with the intention of wanting to just write an art song again, and I came across his poetry, and I really liked it, and I decided to write the art song for fun.
Well, it's great, and we certainly all thought it was just terrific. Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with art song? How did you first become exposed to it? What composers did you initially admire that led you to be interested in expressing yourself in this form?
The first time I started getting into art songs was when I first wrote my first one in 2018 for a class. And yeah, it was an art song unit, and I learned with my teacher on how to compose pieces like that, and it's something that I really enjoy doing, just the idea of setting text to music and really being creative with how to convey certain things in the text. And I would say that I do look up to composers like David Lang, Christopher Cerrone, Missy Mazzoli for their kind of art songwriting.
Well, that's terrific. Now, there's a real starkness to both the poetry and to your musical setting of it. Was it a sort of an aesthetic choice right away that you just saw, that there was going to be the way the poem itself is constructed? How did that inform the way you chose to set it?
I think the poetry was just very straightforward, and I think that was the thing that I kind of liked about it. It has a very interesting straightforwardness to it, as well as kind of a minimalist, but also pretty descriptive, and I think it just seemed like a very natural text to set.
There's an interesting contrast to me in the piece of a real almost knife edge of sharpness and clarity to it over almost what's like a ground bass or a sort of a long-running bass, and then moments of incredible warmth and compassion. So when you are envisioning the mood of a piece and you have this text to work with, how do you sort of pace the emotion of the piece?
I think I just spend a lot of time with the text to just really see what kind of like feelings I get from the text. And for this piece specifically, I wanted to convey like maybe like a lunatic nature of it, which is why it repeats multiple times, and every time it's more bothered and more tense, and I think that's how I kind of created the pacing, by kind of making these three sections, and each time getting more bothered. And I think the piece describes like gray sky and like falling, and I think that kind of gave me a melancholy feel. So the descending bass line kind of contributed to like the melancholy feel, and that's how I kind of formed this piece.
Well, I think one of the things that struck all of us is just how spare it is, but how utterly effective it is, and that's a real fine edge to explore, because I've certainly heard pieces that are not minimalistic in the Philip Glass way or John Adams or Steve Reich way, but are more in just the vein of there's so little on. So little adorning this. It's not in a big rich harmonic experience. But what I was really impressed by was the amount of emotion that you have with such spare material. Are you inspired by minimalism generally? And again, and I don't mean the musical style necessarily, but just more of that aesthetic.
Yeah, I would say I am inspired a lot by a lot of minimalist music, and yeah, composers again like David Lang, Christopher Cerrone, Nico Muhly have huge inspiration on me, and I think just like the idea of using very little material to to generate something is something that I do a lot in my work.
Well, and that leads me to the next question that I had, which is how is this similar to other works that you write and other vocal works that you've written? Is it kind of a piece, or was this a different direction based on how you were inspired by the text?
Yeah, so I think this piece is similar because I tend to really think a lot about dramatic arc, and a lot of my pieces usually have high climactic points, and again the minimalist nature is very common in a lot of my pieces as well.
Well, Che, it's been delightful to talk to you, and we're so proud to bring your work, The Lunatic, to Eugene Opera's Songs for Quarantine.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Good luck. Take care. Here is Che Buford's The Lunatic as performed by mezzo-soprano Penn and pianist Nathalie Fortin.
It's a